My name is Dee Kumar, and today we're going to be working on real estate examination review all over the United States. This is going to be good for anywhere, anytime, any place in the United States to get you help with studying for that real estate examination. My experience, my background, I've been teaching for like 30 years. I'm a professional investor. I've been investing since I've been 18 years old, and I am thrilled to welcome you as one of the gatekeepers getting you into the business, and I hope you get in. I hope you get licensed. This is good in every single state, so for anybody watching this in the United States looking to get their real estate license, this is going to help you out. Now, today we have something special. What I've done and what Kate has done, who's my partner, is we've put together a compendium of the most popular community posts. Obviously, we'll go through the correct answer, but I want to show you the number one wrong answer. Now, that's another way to approach studying, because many times what this will help you do is really pay attention to sort of the fine points of what's happening inside of the question. So let's get into these. What I want to do is I want to jump right in. All right, let's do this. So the first one that was pretty popular was, which of the following distinguishes negligent misrepresentation from intentional misrepresentation? Letter A, the level of harm caused to the misrepresented party. Letter B, the agent's choice to conceal material defects. Letter C, the absence of intent to deceive or conceal material facts. Letter D, the amount of false information that is provided. So it's asking us, which of the following distinguishes negligent misrepresentation from intentional misrepresentation? Absolutely something you want to know, and you need to know the distinction. And the answer is letter C, the absence of intent to deceive or conceal material facts. So the difference between negligent misrepresentation and intentional is the intent to deceive. That's pretty simple. Now, the number one wrong answer that students picked on our YouTube channel was the agent's choice to conceal material defects. And so that was the number one wrong answer. The correct answer here all day long was the absence of intent to deceive or conceal. So if you're intentionally looking to conceal something, then that's the intentional misrepresentation. Negligence simply means that you should have known something that you were saying was false or could be injurious, that you should have known better. That's the difference between negligence and intentional misrepresentation. Definitely something you're going to see. The next question, what is the primary purpose of the statute of frauds in real estate contracts? Letter A, to ensure contracts are fair and equitable. Letter B, to require all contracts to be in writing. Letter C, to promote transparency in contract negotiations. Letter D, to prevent disputes arising from oral agreements. So again, what is the primary purpose of the statute of frauds? And the answer is letter D, to prevent disputes arising from oral agreements. Now, this is very interesting, and look at 41% of our students picked letter B here, to require all contracts to be in writing. Now, here's a problem. In many courses that students are taking right now, it is a misunderstood component of statute of frauds. Many instructors and many textbooks that you have that are out there, as a matter of fact, do point to the requiring all contracts be in writing. Well, that's not the primary purpose. The primary purpose of the statute of frauds is to prevent disputes arising from oral agreements. So there's a difference here. One is saying to require all contracts to be in writing. That's not the primary purpose of the statute of frauds. The statute of frauds was written into law to prevent disputes from all of the oral arguments and agreements that were taking place. So like the courts were inundated with hearsay. It's like, hey, the innkeeper and the ale distributor would, on a handshake agree to get into business with each other, and then the ale distributor would increase their prices, and this was all oral agreement. So the two of them would dispute it and go to the local magistrate, and the magistrate was like, dude, look, we can't help you unless there's something in writing. This is getting ridiculous. We don't know who's telling the truth or not. So if you want to come to us, if you want to have something enforceable, then it needs to be in writing. So to prevent disputes arising from oral agreements was the primary purpose, and the ultimate intended consequence is that most contracts, especially in real estate, have to be in writing in order to be enforceable. So per the statute of frauds, however, to prevent disputes from arising from oral agreements. Definitely rewatch this, and you'll learn these little bits. And this is what's helping to sharpen the blade as you're getting ready for that examination. This stuff's good. This stuff's really valuable to be able to study this stuff like this. Gary is looking for a financing option where he can borrow against his home's equity as needed with variable interest rates similar to a credit card. What should he consider? Letter A, a home equity loan. Letter B, a bridge loan. Letter C, a wraparound mortgage. Letter D, a home equity line of credit or HELOC. They're looking for a financing option where they can borrow against the home's equity as needed with variable interest rates similar to a credit card. And the answer is letter D. The number one wrong answer, if you look here, 46% of our community picked home equity loan. And the truth is, they kind of looked at it and they said, here's home equity. And as needed is something that I circled. As needed. A home equity loan is when you draw a larger amount, and it's not similar to a credit card. A credit card type financing option is the HELOC. This is the credit card loan that you can draw up and pay down and draw up and pay down. And that's the idea. A home equity loan is simply could just be a second mortgage. It could just be pulling cash out in one lump sum. But the home equity line of credit, you can utilize like a credit card, and that's the difference. And so just remember that if this were a question, 46% of our students were like, oh, this is the answer. So, and again, this is just another point to get you over the finish line. The next question, what is an advantage of adjustable rate mortgages or ARMs? Letter A, lower initial interest rate compared to fixed rate loans. Letter B, predictable monthly payments. Letter C, fixed interest rates throughout the loan term. Letter D, all of the above. And the answer is letter A, lower initial interest rates compared to fixed rate loans. The 32% of our audience in this community post selected all of the above. Now, sort of there's contradiction here if you just look at it, right? So sometimes what could happen is the way things are worded on these questions, as many of y'all know, because I've trained so many of you, and I've literally looked at every single resource out there in the available kind of to check it out. And I can certainly tell you that they put questions into exams like this, and many times the path of least resistance happens to sound like D, all of the above. But if you look at the contradiction, ARMs are completely adjusting interest rates, right? So they're completely moving all the time. And because of that, well, they're not predictable. So predictable monthly payments is just completely not a feature of or an advantage, I would say here, of what that is. So it eliminates B. And as soon as I know that one of them doesn't fit, then I can eliminate D. Then I know, okay, well, maybe it's between A and C. Well, adjustable rate mortgages are not fixed interest rates throughout the loan. That's not true. So we know that that's incorrect as well. And we can only go to letter A as the viable answer. So again, I'll use process of elimination. I'll play a little bit of game here to say, okay, well, let me entertain two of these. There's possibility. And then I'm going to kind of go through and sort of, shoot it apart and just kind of go, okay, this couldn't be it because of this. Next question, which approach is most suitable for estimating the value of unique or specialized properties? Letter A, the income analysis approach. Letter B, automated valuation model. Letter C, the cost approach. Letter D, the sales comparison approach. Which of the following, which approach is most suitable? When you play these games in the test writing world, they're looking for something specific. It's the most suitable for estimating the value of unique or specialized properties. And the answer, letter C, is the cost approach. And there was a lot of sales comparison approach. So this is simply just knowing the definition. And sort of the red herring is in many books, you might learn about something called an AVM, an automated valuation model. And so letter B is interesting, right? Because we use these in modern day lending practices to try to determine an estimate of value, many times for home equity lines of credit and HELOCs and stuff like that. And so what they do is, or if you're trying to get rid of PMI, they use AVMs. But that's not that's not a method or an approach to value. So we can eliminate B by simply saying, well, that's not one of the three approaches that you learn about. Remember, we learn about three approaches in all valuation chapters when you're studying for this exam. We learn about the income approach, we learn about the cost approach, and we learn about the sales comparison or the market data approach. So we know that A, B, and D are all legit things. We can kick B out. So now it's between them. And we learn, hopefully you learn this in your classes, I know I teach it in mine, that the unique or specialized properties, the most suitable for those is the cost approach. Okay, reproduction and replacement cost are two subcategories. You want to also remember and study the three different types of depreciation, the incurable versus curable functions for each, except for external or economic obsolescence, which is always incurable. And you want to definitely know how that all works. The next question is the act of the government exercising its right to take private property for public use. Now, by the way, I have gone over these types, this category of question a lot. If you've been consuming our content, I definitely do it. You're going to see this on exams, and they split hairs here. They're looking for you to get caught. So the classic two answers, letter A, eminent domain, letter B, alienation, letter C, condemnation, letter D, conversion. The act of the government exercising its right to take private property for public use, right? The answer is letter C. 70% of our students picked letter A that are interacting with our community posts. And what that is, and I'm telling you, that's why this question or something like this question is on that examination, highest of probabilities. By the way, I don't have a copy of your exam, but I've trained so many folks, and I've written books. I've been a ghostwriter for other publishing companies. I know this stuff pretty well, and I can tell you what I also know pretty well is the psychology of exam writers. And I'm pretty good. My targeting system is just pretty good with being able to be very focused on what these items are and what I would test you on and what I wouldn't test you on. That's one of the reasons why I'm pretty good at picking this stuff. The truth is many folks realize that eminent domain is a phrase where the government can take private property for public use. So to take private property for public use, the government, its right, eminent domain is the right of government. However, this is saying the act of the government, or another word for act could be the process. And so that's condemnation all day long. Is that condemnation is the act or the process, and eminent domain is the right. And again, this is a question that nails, as you can see here, 70%. And if you can just get this one and you're just about to pass, you just passed. So let's do this. You guys have this. You look at the very fine points here, and you'll figure out what I'm talking about, okay? So this is super helpful, hopefully. I mean, if I were studying, this is something that I would want to know as I'm drilling down and fine-tuning right before the exam. The act of transferring or conveying ownership, rights or interests in a property from one party to another is known as letter A, conversion, letter B, alienation, letter C, estoppel, letter D, eviction. The act of transferring or conveying ownership, there's that word again, act, or interest in a property from one party to another. And the answer is letter B, alienation. 53% of folks that attempted this question picked conversion as the answer. Conversion, the act of transferring or conveying ownership rights or interests in a property from one party to another. Conversion. Now, conversion, by the way, is not any of that. Conversion, if you remember from your brokerage sections, is taking escrowed money and using that money for purposes not appropriate to the deal, just using other people's money. That's conversion. And then commingling is another word that goes hand in hand with conversion, right? Alienation, textbook definition, is the act of transferring or conveying. As a matter of fact, the word alienation means to transfer. I guarantee the word alienation, estoppel, conversion, all of these words are going to be on that exam. And they could show up like this, where you Might have to pick a definition and figure it out. They might throw other vocab phrases in here so you've seen them before, but if you're kind of a little fuzzy on what they mean, they could catch you there. So again, we're drilling down. This is when you're getting closer to the examination date. So my friends that are kind of far away, you may not want to go this granular. For those that are kind of farther away from their exams, you might want to just get the big picture, like go through some of the questions, go and understand the concepts and everything else. But when you're looking to drill down, this is the kind of work that you need to do. This is going to simply help you to understand better what is about to come at you. The next one. Which type of ownership is specifically designed for married couples and offers legal protection against individual debts? Letter A, joint tenancy. Letter B, tenancy by the entirety. Letter C, ownership in severalty. Letter D, tenancy in common. There's a little G at the end of this, so skip that little one. So again, these are all co-ownership style questions. The answer? Which type of ownership is specifically designed for married couples? The answer is tenancy by the entirety. Now, the number one wrong answer here was joint tenancy. So a lot of folks don't know the differences between. Now, the big buzzword here for entirety is married couples. It is reserved exclusively for married couples. That's what it's designed for. There are some states that don't observe tenancy by the entirety. There are some states that observe community property, and some states may be just joint tenancy with right of survivorship. However, the tenancy by the entirety is definitely for married couples only, and it does have protection against individual debts. I'm a big believer that you do need to get these sorted. You want to know these definitions. Tenancy, ownership, and severalty is single or sole. Tenancy in common, joint tenancy, tenancy by the entirety, maybe some of the definitions of community property. You want to know those. You want to know which ones have the right of survivorship. What does right of survivorship mean? And you also want to know little things like, well, what were to happen if somebody were to pass away? Next question. If a buyer is making a 10% down payment on a home that costs $800,000, how much are they financing? Letter A, $80,000. Letter B, $120,000. Letter C, $700,000. Letter D, $720,000. And the answer? Letter D. And interesting, right? So on its face, it's a fairly simple question. It's really just asking us, hey, we're making a 10% down payment on a home that costs $800,000. So we can easily get that number. So what a lot of students do, and if you see here, 42% of the students that attempted this question picked letter A. And as you know, that's 10%. So $80,000 is 10% of $800,000. So we know that. And they forgot a step. And that's classic on exams. So again, we have this in here purposefully. We had it in the community posts purposely because we wanted to test a theory. And you see a lot of students, whiffing on this one. And so 42% of y'all picked $80,000 and you were almost there. That's 10%. But how much are they financing was the question, and that was the trick. They buried it like at the end. And then in that case, you subtract $80,000 from $800,000 and you get $720,000. So they are financing 90% loan to value, $720,000. The next one, which of the following is prohibited under Federal Fair Housing Act? Letter A, discrimination based on age. Letter B, discrimination based on military status. Letter C, discrimination based on familial status. Letter D, discrimination based on marital status. Which of the following is prohibited under the Federal Fair Housing Act? And the answer? Letter C, discrimination based on familial status. The number one wrong answer, students picked discrimination based on age. And so you definitely want to know, and the other, look at the subtlety here. Letter B was military status, and letter D was marital status. And other people have picked marital status before. You just need to memorize the 7 protected classes of the Federal Fair Housing Act. and then the 8 protected classes of the Equal Credit Opportunity Act on the federal level. The first 5 are there in sync. Race, color, religion, national origin, and sex are equal. They're the same in both laws. And then there's a deviation. In federal fair housing, it's familial status and disability. And then in Equal Credit Opportunity Act, it's age, marital status, and the receipt of public assistance. You just have to commit this to memory. And if you do, it's going to serve you well. Also pay attention that the state fair housing laws in the states that you are in may be substantially more comprehensive to its citizenry than the 7 protected classes. Some states are just like, nope, federal government says 7, we're going to protect 7. And then other states are like, nope, federal government says 7, we can add more, and we're gonna. And like, so that's, you want to know the additional protected classes in the states that you're in. All right, so here is the deal. I'm going over 5 questions that we have in our new masterclass. It's awesome. It's not like this compendium of everything real estate. My goal was never to do that. Neither was Kate's. It's basically saying we don't cover everything on the examination, but I can tell you that we've compiled the biggest high impact targets that you need so you can pass in less time. And so I'm super excited about it. Now, this is for sort of these future top producers. This is for the folks that are looking to do it. It's a masterclass that is really, really, really sort of made to take everything and like boil it down to 6 hours or so, right? So like that's pretty time compressed, and sort of that's the logic. So you follow this thing, follow the yellow brick road basically, and you're going to be good to go. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you some of these high impact questions today as a thank you and as a little bit of a teaser, but without further ado, let me jump into these questions. All right, so here we go. Question number 1. In tenancy in common, how do multiple owners hold ownership shares? Letter A, equally with automatic transfer to surviving co-owners. Letter B, independently with distinct ownership shares. Letter C, jointly with equal authority over the property. Letter D, with a right of survivorship. The question again is, in a tenancy in common, how do multiple owners hold ownership shares? And the answer? Letter B, independently with distinct ownership shares. Now, it is no secret at all, that I am a big believer in learning your co-ownerships. This is stuff that's going to be on examinations. Now listen, I don't have a copy of all of your examinations. I just have a crazy good targeting system that has been honed over doing this for like 30 years, right? So like when you make something a part of your DNA and you get really good at it, one of the things that you should strive to do is be able to explain it really well. And so it's been a quest for 3 decades to be able to explain this stuff really well, even though nobody wants to talk to me about real estate. When we sit down, when I meet people, they're like, I don't want to talk about this stuff. But the reality is it's made fortunes. It's helped us financially like I couldn't tell you. So, you want to know this stuff. All right. So listen, outside of the exam, co-ownership, super important. Tenancy in common is a super important one. And what's unique about it in the tenancy in common is that the right of survivorship does not exist. So independently ownership, you'll have a deed in your name with your percentage ownership interest. You can do as you wish with that. And then when you pass, it just goes to your estate. So the right of survivorship is a bit counterintuitive. It means that if you were to pass, then the surviving co-owners get your interest. It doesn't go to your estate. So the right of survivorship means that the surviving co-owners get the ownership interest, not your estate. So in a tenancy in common, we hold multiple owners hold ownership shares independently with distinct ownership shares. As a matter of fact, a tenancy in common is the only one where you can have a disproportionate interest of ownership. Question number 2. What term describes the act of a property owner formally granting or giving their private land to a government entity or municipality for a specific purpose? Letter A, eminent domain. Letter B, dedication. Letter C, donation. Letter D, annexation. The question is, what term describes the act of a property owner formally granting or giving their private land to a government entity or municipality for a specific public purpose. And the answer? Letter B, dedication. Now, so the interesting question, and it's framed really nice, is it's talking about something that could lead people into thinking eminent domain, right? So we're talking about public purpose, we're talking about government entity, we're talking about private land. So it's got all of the subliminal undertones of eminent domain. And so if you were not aware of what a dedication is, then eminent domain would have been a very popular wrong answer. Now, annexation is not that. And donation, many people might say, well, I don't know. Donation is going to be the lowest probable answer. Annexation, dedication, eminent domain are the top three. Eminent domain was the red herring, and the answer to this is dedication. Question number 3. An investor purchases 2 adjacent properties, one for $150,000 and one for $200,000. The value of the larger combined lot is now $400,000. This increase in value is an example of what? Letter A, annexation. Letter B, appreciation. Letter C, assemblage. Letter D, plottage. I'm going to give you a second to take a sip of my matcha. An investor purchases 2 adjacent properties, one for $150,000 and one for $200,000. The value of the larger combined lot is now $400,000. This increase in value is an example of, and the answer, letter D, plottage. So here's a good one. These are economic principles of value. In other words, what increases value or contributes to an increase in the value, right? All right. An investor purchases 2 adjacent properties, one for $150K and one for $200. Well, you combine those two and we have a $350,000, combination value / cost, right? Really cost, not so much value. There could be a direct correlation to cost and value, and there might be a divergence between those two numbers, right? So the value of the larger combined lot is now $400,000. So there's a profit realized through successfully assembling those 2 parcels. So there's 2 economic principles of value that go hand in hand, and that is assemblage and the word plottage. Let me show you here. Assemblage is assembling 2 parcels of land, right? So that's assembling. What happened right there? Whoa, that's crazy. Assemblage is combining 2 parcels of land, and plottage is the profits realized through successful assemblage. So what they're saying here is, hey, this increase in value, it increased because it should be $350,000, but it increased by $50,000, and now the value is $400,000. What this increase in value is an example of what? And that is plottage. Plottage is, think of P for plottage, P for profits, and plottage is the profits realized through successful assemblage. So when you combine 2 lots together and you get a greater value because, let's say, for example, it's more developable or something like that, then we call that plottage. And this is a great question. Again, it throws in other words. It throws in different letters. It's like, hey, these 3 words, all of which are legit real estate phrases, start with the letter A. So they do this to trip you up. Think of it like this. It's like, whoa, I'm going to give this person 3 A words and they're all actual vocab phrases. And I want to see if they understand the word assemblage. And then I also want to trip them up and think about the word plottage, because this is really an example of plottage, not assemblage. There was assemblage taking place in this question, and then at the end there was an increase in value, and that was the trick. So many people that are reading this might go, you know what? This is assemblage, if they remember their, valuation chapters. Great question. And let's go to the next one. All right, question number 4. VJ is purchasing a home for $550,000 and is making a total down payment of 20%. He already has paid $10,000 in deposit. How much more does he need to bring to the closing? Letter A, $90,000. Letter B, $100,000. Letter C, $110,000. Letter D, $120,000. So VJ is purchasing a home for $550,000 and is making a total down payment of 20%. He already has paid a $10,000 deposit. How much more does he need to bring to closing? This is a classic, how much do we need to bring to closing style question. Super duper duper high probability. And the answer is $100,000, letter B. So my boy VJ's got to bring in an extra $100,000 to bring to closing. He's already made a deposit of $10,000. For those that need a little bit help looking at the math, let's just take a look. Here's just a quick breakdown of it. So again, he's purchasing a home for $550,000 and is making a total down payment of 20%. The step number one is we calculate the total down payment. Well, what is this? What's 20% of $550,000? 20% is 0.20 times the 550 gives the total 20% down payment of $110,000. Now look what they do. Classic to these test folks is they're going to give you this answer. So here it is right there. It's $110,000. And so what people do is they get tripped up. They're like, oh man, I'm confused. Maybe that's the answer. They forgot that they already put down a $10,000 deposit. So whatever the answer is going to be short $10,000. So that brings us to step number two. Subtract the deposit already paid. So in this case, the total 20% down payment is $110,000. We're going to subtract the $10,000 already paid deposit. That gives us $100,000. And so my boy VJ needs to bring $100,000 to closing. Classic. This is a classic on exams. Classic. So that's why it's in there. And I just wanted to give that. So it's a nice understanding of something simple that you're going to be able to nail. All right. And then the final question, when considering Federal Housing Administration, FHA, and Veterans Administration, VA loans, the following statement is most accurate. Letter A, FHA insured loans and VA guarantees loans. Letter B, FHA guarantees loans and the VA insures loans. Letter C, both FHA and VA guarantee loans. Letter D, FHA and VA both insure and guarantee loans. So the question is, when considering Federal Housing Administration, the FHA, and Veterans Administration, the VA loans, the following statement is most accurate. And the answer is letter A. So the FHA insures loans and the VA guarantees loans. That is the most accurate statement. And so you want to know that the FHA is basically a large insurance company, and it's a public sector insurance company that's basically guaranteeing banks against default. Therefore, the banks can take on more risk because an FHA loan, the government will come back in and guarantee the lender 100% against default. And the VA doesn't insure loans, but there is a guarantee on the loan. A percentage of the loan is guaranteed. So 25% of the loan is guaranteed through the VA. And so therefore, if the lender has to foreclose, unfortunately, on the vet because of default, well, then the lender's at a safer loan to value ratio, which would make foreclosure a little bit more easy during the process. But again, the VA is a guarantee and the FHA insures. And I'll just put that up really quickly so you can take a peek. And there you go. All right, there were 5 of those questions. And again, these are questions that are sick, in my opinion, very, very highly accurate. They do a really fantastic job. If I don't say so myself, and give some props to Kate, between the two of us, my God, we've put in so many years of doing this. We see patterns, we see trends, we see different materials that are out there. And so from teaching all these years and the tens of thousands of folks that I've gotten the privilege to teach, and all of the folks that we've helped pass, even hundreds just in the past couple of months just on our YouTube channel, which is killer, we get a really keen sense of sort of what's happening. And luckily, we're able to validate that because people are passing on YouTube. I mean, YouTube, right? So that's awesome. Very, very cool. Now, with that in mind, I hope the time we spent together yields you some success. Good luck with your studies and good luck on your tests. Keep working at it, keep studying hard, study strong, stay in there, keep focusing on stuff and concentrate. If there's anything we can do to help in furtherance of what we're doing, leave it in the comments. If y'all haven't subscribed to the channel and you're new to it, welcome, 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 welcome. All are welcome, by the way, and you please consider subscribing to our channel. If you have, thank you. Wow, it is such a privilege and honor. We just hit 10,000 subscribers in like record time. We couldn't be more excited, and we are jumping through lots of awesome things. Things are popping all over the place, and we look forward to making sure that those things serve you, our community.